Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Now today I'm going to be showing you how to extract extra performance from your CPU without having to upgrade to any better hardware. So this is called overclocking. Overclocking is basically making your CPU run faster by applying some more power to it. It's a very simple process and it requires a processor that can be overclocked like an Intel K CPU and a motherboard that supports overclocking. But anyways guys, let's jump straight into it and I'll show you how to overclock your CPU. So, you're going to want to start in your BIOS. This is the motherboard BIOS I have. You're just going to want to smash delete or a certain key to get into BIOS. Usually it is delete. And once you're inside the BIOS, it's going to look something like this. You're going to want to find your overclock settings. Right here are mine in this box right here. So I'll click on that and we'll get into the overclock settings. Now before we start, we're going to want to go into an advanced mode of sorts. If you don't have this, then don't worry about it. But advanced mode, so we can see all the features here. And we're going to start by changing our CPU ratio. Now let me explain what this is. So, you can see that my clock speed for my CPU is actually 3.5 gigahertz right now. So, in order to get that, it multiplies the base clock, which is 1000 megahertz, by 35, which gets us 3500 megahertz or 3.5 gigahertz. So, in order to step up our frequency, which is essentially overclocking, we're going to want to change the CPU ratio to something better. So, let's say we want to overclock to 5 gigahertz, we'd put 50, and that's 5 gigahertz right there. For this video, I'm just going to overclock to 3.9 gigahertz, so we'll just put 39 in our CPU ratio, and there we go, that's it. So now, the only thing we have left to do is mess with the voltage settings. Now, the voltage is important because your CPU might not work properly if it doesn't have enough voltage. The thing is, if you have too much voltage, your CPU is going to get a lot hotter. It's not going to be good. But anyway, other than that, what we're going to do is we're going to find something along the lines of CPU core, ring, GT, voltage mode, or V core, something like that, some sort of mode. And you should be able to find adaptive mode. That's a very standard thing. So click on adaptive mode, and that's all we're going to do inside the BIOS. Now, what you're going to want to do when you're actually overclocking is gradually step up this value. And then if your computer crashes, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to step up the V-core voltage. So over here, you're just going to want to step this up a little bit. I usually step this up by 0.025 volts at a time to make sure you don't give too much voltage to your CPU. I wouldn't go over 4 volts personally. I don't want to kill my CPU because a CPU really doesn't like that much voltage. Just make sure you don't just throw voltage at it. So once we're done with that, we're just going to exit out of our BIOS. So just going to click here, save configuration and exit. And now we're going to boot into Windows in order to benchmark and stability test our CPU. Alright, so we've booted into Windows. And we're going to need some programs installed on our computer. The one I suggest the most is CPU-Z because this is going to allow you to see whether your overclock works or not. Cortana, I don't really care. But anyways, yeah, this is going to show our core speed in here. So it should be around 3.9 gigahertz or 3900 megahertz. And you can see the multiplier is exactly what we said in BIOS. The normal multiplier for my CPU is 35. So yeah, we did step it up a little bit. So that's about it. So now that we've done that, we're just going to want to close out of here. And we're going to go into real temp. Now this is going to be a program that's going to allow you to see the temperatures of your CPU in real time. Now I'm using a stock cooler, which I don't suggest overclocking on those, and I'm going to get some weird comments on that. It's just 0.1 gigahertz more than this CPU Turbo Boost 2. But anyway, we're going to want to get some programs. Now if you're running an Intel CPU, Intel Burn Test works just fine. It's a great program to stress test. If you're running AMD, you can try to use Intel Burn Test. I'm not even sure if it does work. But the one I suggest after that is IDA64. IDA64 has a free trial, although it is actually a paid program other than that. But yeah, the trial should work just fine so you could see your stuff. Anyway, we're going to open up Intel Burn Test for this video. And what we're going to do is we're just going to click Start. Just click Start. Make sure you have Standard selected here. And what this is going to do is it's just going to stress the CPU to the maximum. At the same time, keep close attention to over here to your real temp, because it looks like if you see log, that means your CPU is overheating. So just make sure you don't see any of those. Also, if you see hot right there, that's not good either. So it means it's going to thermal throttle, which is a great feature of CPUs nowadays. So if you have too hot of a CPU, it will actually slow down its clock speed. But just make sure you don't have any issues with that, because you will need to get a better cooler if you see any hot or logs down there. Anyways, I'm just going to stop this for now. Just make sure this can run without crashing your system. And then open up Cinebench. Cinebench is a great benchmark. This is basically useful for anything, just testing in general. But we're going to click right here next to Run on CPU. And by the way, all the programs will be linked down below in the description so you can download them. But just have Real Temp open off to the side so you can see exactly what's happening in terms of your temperatures. Now, Cinebench is usually not as intensive as Intel Burn Test. So you'll see the temperatures aren't that high compared to Intel Burn Test. Let this run the whole way through. And if you see any crashes or a black screen, that means your system has crashed. So basically, just step down the overclock or step up the voltage. That's just something you're going to have to mess around with because overclocking isn't just a one-step process. You're going to have to mess around with it and take some time out of your day to find the right settings. Another thing to note is just running these benchmarks once doesn't mean your system is stable. Like this one is probably going to do just fine, but that doesn't mean it's stable. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to run a program, let's say like Prime 95, that's one of my favorite ones, and just leave it on for a very long time, maybe like 10 to 24 hours, to make sure your system is completely rock solid. And if it crashes within that time, that means your overclock isn't stable enough, so maybe add some more voltage or bring down the overclock. And that is basically my step-by-step process for overclocking your CPU. This method doesn't really require you to change the voltage too much, unless you're overclocking a lot. So if you're overclocking from 3 GHz to 5 GHz, you're first going to need a good cooler, and second off, you're really going to need to step up the voltages. But either way, for casual overclock, this method will work just fine. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like, and if you really liked it, then make sure to subscribe. Anyways, guys, I'm out. I'll see you in the next one.